Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're kicking off a series on the history of physics, and we're starting right at the beginning with ancient Greece. We'll talk about Democritus and his wild idea about atoms, Plato and Aristotle's big disagreement about reality, and Archimedes, the guy who basically invented math-powered physics. So let's get into it. Our understanding of the world may feel super modern, but its history backs to ancient times, to an era when philosophy and science were one and the same. Long before we had laboratory experiments, advanced mathematics, or particle accelerators, ancient thinkers stood under the open sky and began asking the first real questions about existence. What is the universe made of? What causes change? Is there a fundamental order in nature? To understand the history of physics and science in general, first we need to go back in time. Stepping back into the ancient Mediterranean, around 400 BCE, we find ourselves in a world where the line between myth and reason was just beginning to crack open. To truly understand this era, you have to picture a place completely free of modern technology, where the night sky was blindingly clear and the only way to explain a lightning bolt, a plague, or a change in seasons was to blame the whims of the gods. In this world, most people believed that reality was governed by supernatural forces. If a ship sank, Poseidon was angry. If a harvest failed, Demeter was weeping. But in small pockets across the Greek world, a radically new way of thinking began to emerge. A few bold thinkers asked a dangerous question. What if nature operates on its own rules without the gods interfering at all? This was the birth of natural philosophy. Thinkers before Democritus had tried to explain the world using primary substances. Thales claimed everything was made of water. Anaximenes argued for air. Heraclitus insisted the fundamental nature of reality was fire and constant change. They were moving away from mythology, sure, but their theories were still crude and bound by simple observation. Democritus, on the other hand, took this new line of thinking and to its absolute limit. He didn't just want to guess which element mattered the most, he wanted to find the ultimate truths of reality. This led him to propose that everything was made of tiny, invisible, unbreakable pieces called atoms, moving through empty space, officially turning natural philosophy into a search for physical laws. One of his most profound philosophical ideas was the distinction between objective reality and human perception. Democritus realized that our senses do not show us the world as it truly is. Qualities like color, taste, temperature, and smell do not exist inside the atoms themselves. A strawberry, for example, isn't inherently red or sweet in the physical world. Rather, red and sweet are merely subjective sensations produced in our minds when specific atomic shapes collide with our sense organs. When in reality, there is no red, no cold, no bitterness. There are only atoms colliding in the dark. That's structurally the same gesture Plato makes in the allegory of the cave. Yes, that famous one. The everyday world we pursue isn't the truth, it's a kind of projection, and only reason, not the eyes or tongue, can get past the projection to what's actually there. says this allegory. Both are, if you can notice, Democritus and Plato, in that sense, rationalists, yes, about ultimate reality. Trust the intellect, distrust the senses. However, Democritus says there's nothing beyond matter. He is a strict materialist compared to Plato. He says that the redness of the strawberry is unreal, but the atoms causing it are completely real, objective, and fully physical. This way, he proposed the we called atomism, famously known until this day. Let's continue with Aristotle. Aristotle's natural philosophy grows directly out of an argument with his teacher, Plato. But it also has to be understood against Democritus, whom we discussed earlier. Democritus had already tried to explain nature by stripping it down to something very simple. Hard, indivisible atoms bumping into each other in empty space with no purpose behind any of it. Plato went in almost the opposite direction, treating the physical world as a shadowy copy of perfect, unchanging forms that exist somewhere beyond matter entirely. Aristotle takes a middle path between these two extremes. His starting point is simple. Nature is whatever makes a thing move or rest on its own from the inside. A plant grows, an animal reproduces, a rock falls. Not because some outside force is constantly pushing it, like Plato's God shaping the world from outside, but because each thing has its own built-in tendency to behave that way. So instead of looking outside the physical world for the real, quote-unquote, explanation like Plato did, Aristotle looks inside the object itself. To explain why things happen, Aristotle uses his famous 4 causes. If you ask why this thing exists, why this happened, he says there are 4 kinds of answers. What it's made of, material cause, what shape or structure makes it that kind of thing, formal cause, what made it happen, efficient cause, and what it's for, its purpose, final cause. A wooden table, for example, is explained by its wood, material, its table shape, formal, the carpenter who built it, efficient, and its purpose of holding things, its final. Nature, for Aristotle, always works this same way. Even without a craftsman, a tree quote-unquote knows how to grow into a tree because that growth plan is baked into what it is. Aristotle also built a careful theory of motion and change, something Democritus and Plato barely touched in detail. He said change is neither the before state nor the after state, but the actual process of getting from one to the other. Like a house being built is neither the raw bricks nor the finished house, but the in-between process itself. This led him treat change as something real and worth studying on its own, rather than dismissing it, like Plato did, as a lesser shadow of unchanging truth. Aristotle separates 2 kinds of activity, kinesis and inertia. A kinesis is a process aimed entirely at some end outside itself, building a house, losing weight, studying for an exam. The whole point of a kinesis is that it stops once the goal arrives. House building isn't something that you keep doing once the house is finished. It was only ever a means. And inertia, by contrast, is an activity that is complete at every moment it's happening, like seeing, thinking, living well. You don't do these things in order to reach some later state, but the doing itself already contains the value. Aristotle's own example is instructive. You can say I am seeing and I have seen at the same time, but you can't say I am building a house and I have built a house at the same time. One is a completed thing at every instant, the other is only ever incomplete until it stops. An example is really a live illustration of this distinction. Getting a score is a kinesis, a process valuable only because of what it produces. However, if you skip the studying part and decide to cheat, or land on the score by luck, you've gotten the output with none of the inertia, none of the actual activity that was supposed to give it meaning. That's why it feels hollow. The number is identical, but the thing that was supposed to be worth something, the sustained engagement, the gradual sharpening of understanding, never happened. You're holding a trophy for a race you didn't run. Then, about Archimedes. The shift from Aristotle to Archimedes is really a shift from qualitative explanation to quantitative proof. Aristotle explains nature through causes, natures, and tendencies. For example, why a stone seeks its natural place, why fire rises, all argued in words, with no numbers attached. Archimedes takes the same physical world and insists it can be proven geometrically instead. Take the lever and the balance. Aristotle would explain why a heavy object behaves as it does by talking about its nature, like heavy things want to move toward the center of the world. Archimedes instead proved it with logic and numbers. Like if you hang equal weights at equal distances from the center of a balance, it stays level simply because there's no reason for it to tip one way rather than the other. From this one simple idea, he built an entire mathematical theory of levers, showing exactly how much weight at exactly what distance balances another weight at another distance. This is the famous idea behind give me a lever long enough and a place to stand and I can move the world. Not a boast, but a precise mathematical truth about how force and distance trade-off. Archimedes was also a master of clever geometric trick called the method of exhaustion, which let him calculate areas and volumes, like the surface area of a sphere or a very accurate estimate of p. He did this by squeezing a shape between two other shapes he already understood, showing it couldn't be bigger or smaller than a certain value, so it had to be exactly that value. So he had a private method for finding answers and a separate, more formal method for proving them were true, which is basically still how science and math works today. I think you noticed that math and physics were never really separate in the ancient world. They braided together from the start, but with different emphasis in different places. Pythagoras and his followers treated mathematics itself as the deepest layer of reality, which is really proto-physics dressed as mathematics. Plato followed this instinct in the Timaeus, using geometric solids to explain the four elements. Aristotle then pulled physics away from math deliberately, that he thought physical questions, why things move, what things are made of, needed their own conceptual toolkit, not geometry, but because physical bodies involve matter and change in ways pure mathematical objects don't. Archimedes then pulled it back the other direction, showing that physical relationships, levers, floating boats, areas, and volumes could be proven with the same rigor as geometry. So there isn't a clean math first then physics order. They emerge together, split apart with Aristotle and then get refused by Archimedes, and this fusing and splitting keeps happening all through history. As for how these pieces build into physics as a discipline, Democritus supplies the ontological floor. Matter is made of small fundamental units in motion, nothing more. Plato supplies the demand that reality be intelligible and ultimately mathematical, even if he locates that intelligibility in a separate realm. Aristotle supplies the first systematic, rigorous conceptual apparatus for explaining change, motion, and causation in the physical world itself, and insists physics be a real science with definitions and demonstrations. Archimedes then supplies the missing ingredients Aristotle's system lacked: exact quantification and provable testable relationships between measurable quantities. Put together, these four pieces are basically the whole ancient blueprint for what physics would be later become. Every later physicist, from Galileo onward, is essentially recombining the same four ingredients in new proportions. And that's the ancient foundation of physics. Atoms, ideal worlds, causes, and proof, all laid down over the 2000 years ago and still shaping how we understand the universe today. Pretty wild that it all started with someone just wondering what a strawberry really is. Thanks so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe because next time we're jumping into something more interesting. See you in the next one.